Welcome to Coffee Talk. Your host today is a team from CI 204, known as the Travelers, where today they'll be discussing a brief history of American education from 1900 to 1950.
Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk. I'm Stefan. Along with me are Caitlin, Courtney, and Jennifer's on assignment. She'll be getting to us in a little bit.
Today we're going to take a quick exploration back in time. We'll review a brief history of education from 1900 to 1950.
Sit back and enjoy.
With the turn of the century, 3,700,000 new immigrants arrived in America. There were as many as 200 new students in the classroom after each new ship docked. Due to the lack of space, 1,000 students went to school part-time. The classrooms were considered to be dark, drafty, and sickly, which caused children to not want to attend school. Some 500 child factory workers were surveyed, and 80% chose to work rather than to attend school. John Dewey.
Without some goals and some effort to reach it, no man can live.
By 1910, progressive reformers lobbied for legislation that banned child labor and the mandatory school attendance law was enacted. The next step for reformers was to change the practice of education. Teaching at this point followed the philosophy of towing the line. This consisted of manners, memorization, and recitation, all taught in English as was made mandatory by Congress first in 1906 and then made law in 1917. John Dewey was the father of the progressive movement. His goal was education of the whole child through well-rounded activity. Dewey emphasized the student-oriented education over teacher-oriented education. He implemented progressive learning in the industrial town of Gary, Indiana. Dewey's philosophy was for students to have a rich school experience. By 1912, the Gary Plan was in place throughout the progressive school system. This progressive idea was dubbed the work-study-play system. This plan was designed to tap all the talents of students because students were able to help run the school with the introduction of yearbook and the school newspaper. This plan expanded their minds with academics and allowed them to just be students. Thus, students wanted to attend school over work. Dewey's philosophy and goal of the educational method, work, study, play, was to make every working man a scholar and every scholar a working man.
John Dewey.
Education is a social process. Education is growth. Education is not a preparation for life, but is life itself.
Elwood P. Cubberly.
Our schools are, in a sense, factories in which the raw materials are to be shaped and fashioned into products to meet the various demands of life.
As we continued to become an industrialized nation, the educational emphasis left the Gary Plan and focused more on a career-tracking school program with importance on finding a job, not becoming a wiser, well-rounded person. In the 1920s, this program was created by Elwood P. Cubberly and was named the Science of School Management. In order to efficiently determine what kind of program a student was placed in, they took an IQ test. The student's score determined which career path was to be taken, whether it be placement in college prep class or limited to industrial education or home economics. IQ tests were given as early as age 5, with ethnicity playing a large role in determining placement. Students with a diverse background generally tested lower than those with a white background. Therefore, psychologists concluded that ethnicity influenced the student's IQ with a major impact on the segregation in schools. This caused schools to abandon the impartial IQ test and segregate based on ethnicity alone. Elwood P. Cubberly.
Each year, the child is coming to belong more to the state and less to the parent. In the 1930s, 2/3 of Mexican students were classified as slow learners and mentally retarded because of their low test scores and lack of English language skills, thus resulting in high dropout rates for Mexican Americans. The Great Depression caused parents to panic and realize that the fundamentals were no longer being emphasized in schools. Thus, educational programs returned to the traditional 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Schools again became a place of strict learning and discipline.
Segregation continued in the 1940s and was encouraged when teachers were taught to assume that Mexican students could not compete with their Anglo-Saxon peers. Therefore, they needed to be segregated. The IQ test was no longer used because people had become so set in their prejudices that students were separated by race. The next step for educational progress was the focus on the life adjustment movement. This movement was an effort to make school more relevant to students.
Wow, that's a lot of information to take in.
Jennifer, can you help us to summarize this a bit?
Sure. Jennifer, what were schools for in the early 1900s?
They helped students to learn life skills, trades, and really incorporated the work-study-play method.
What would you say is worth learning back then?
Definitely, the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic.
What about the learners? Who were they?
Because of child labor laws, everyone was going to school until the age of 16.
Did teachers play a certain role in the classroom?
Yes, they were there to teach and incorporate memorization, manners, and recitation skills.
And finally, Jennifer, were there some important people in that time period that we should take note of?
I think the 3 main influences of that period were John Dewey, Elwood P. Cubberly, and one that we did not mention, Lewis Terman, who led the IQ test movement.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Thanks for joining us as we travel back in time to look at education from 1900 to 1950. Until next time.